In every age, people have asked the same questions. What is the good life? How should we treat one another? What does it mean to be free or virtuous or just? What does it mean to be human? Western moral philosophy for beginners and Selenius Media takes you on a guided journey through the minds that shaped the moral backbone of the West, from the earliest Greek thinkers to the modern age. Lived stories of struggle, ambition, conflict, revelation, all unfolding against the sweep of history. If you've ever wanted to understand philosophy clearly, calmly, and humanly, if you want to know not just what these thinkers argued, but why it mattered, follow Western moral philosophy for beginners today and explore 10 more podcasts at Selenius Media. Zeno of Elea, a pre-Socratic philosopher from the 5th century BCE, is best known for his paradoxes, which challenge our understanding of space, time, and motion. He was a student of the philosopher Parmenides, who proposed that reality is unchanging and that all perception of change is an illusion. Zeno's work serves as a bridge between abstract philosophical inquiry and the more concrete questions of morality and ethics. Through his paradoxes, Zeno raised fundamental issues about the nature of reality that continue to inspire philosophical debate today. Much of Zeno's work has not survived in its entirety, but his paradoxes are famously preserved in the writings of later philosophers. These paradoxes are designed to illustrate the absurdities that arise from our intuitive understanding of motion and change. Of particular interest is how these paradoxes engage with moral philosophy and our understanding of the self, agency, and interpersonal relationships. One of Zeno's most famous paradoxes is known as Achilles and the tortoise. In this scenario, Achilles races a tortoise, and to make the race fair, gives the tortoise a head start. The paradox asserts that Achilles will never be able to overtake the tortoise, no matter how fast he runs, because whenever Achilles reaches the point where the tortoise was, the tortoise will have advanced a little further. This paradox challenges our understanding of motion, suggesting that there are infinite subdivisions of distance that cannot be crossed in finite time. On a deeper level, the implications of this paradox extend beyond the realm of physics into moral territory. Zeno invites us to consider the nature of our intentions and actions. If every action requires a series of steps that could, in theory, continue infinitely, how do we understand moral responsibility? If our ethical decisions require countless deliberations and potential actions, how do we arrive at a definitive choice? Herein lies a profound moral dilemma. The paradox may suggest that in a world of infinite possibilities, moral agency becomes fundamentally complicated. Zeno's paradoxes are not mere intellectual exercises. They resonate with modern-day challenges in various domains. For example, in politics, consider the perennial debates about incremental change versus radical transformation. A politician advocating for gradual reform might be seen as hopelessly stuck in a world of Zeno's racing tortoise, forever chasing an ideal society that seems perpetually out of reach. This is particularly evident in discussions around climate change policy, where the path to a sustainable future consists of many small steps that can feel insurmountably distant. Additionally, let's look at the domain of technology, especially with the rise of artificial intelligence. The development and deployment of AI raise questions about intent and agency. Much like Achilles, who is eternally trying to catch the tortoise, programmers and ethicists often find themselves grappling with the complexities of ethical algorithms. The moral implications of ensuring AI behaves ethically raises questions about the limits of our responsibility when creating systems that can learn and evolve on their own. If every decision a system makes is based on a complex set of variables, does that diffuse human accountability? Are we, like Achilles, always just a step behind the ethical implications of our own creations? Zeno's paradoxes also engage with the modern debates in personal ethics, such as those that pertain to procrastination or the pursuit of happiness. Many people feel paralyzed by the overwhelming choices available to them. Like an Achilles who recognizes all the possibilities yet struggles to make a choice, individuals might become stuck in an endless loop of deliberation. This can lead to a phenomenon known as analysis paralysis, where the fear of making the wrong choice prevents them from acting at all. The implication here is striking. Our moral framework and our decision-making processes may be more challenging to navigate than we typically acknowledge. However, Zeno's paradoxes are not without their criticisms. Philosophers like Aristotle challenged Zeno's conclusions by proposing a straightforward understanding of motion that incorporated concepts of continuity and infinity differently. Aristotle argued that motion is the result of a process that can be understood in terms of actual measured distances and time, not merely as a succession of always definable intervals. This introduces an important lens through which we can view moral actions, emphasizing the necessity of making ethical choices based on real circumstances rather than a series of potential infinitesimal actions. Despite these criticisms, the ideas initiated by Zeno continued to intrigue later thinkers, leaving a lasting impact on Western philosophy. For instance, Descartes would later turn to these kinds of paradoxical situations in exploring notions of certainty and doubt. The challenge of infinite regress can also be seen in Kant's ethical framework, particularly in his discussions on duties and moral law. What Zeno sets out as a challenge regarding motion and continuity invites an examination of how ethical principles might function in a world pricked by infinite possibilities and moral dilemmas. As we reflect on Zeno's influence on contemporary moral philosophy, it's worth considering that his paradoxes have encouraged thinkers not only to dissect the nature of change, but also to evaluate how we establish responsibility and agency in a complex world. By highlighting the challenges that come with incalculable possibilities, Zeno pushes us to think critically about our own choices and the philosophical underpinnings of morality itself. In our own lives, Zeno's teachings encourage us to confront the intricacies of decision-making more thoughtfully. How often do we find ourselves caught in inaction, overwhelmed by the multitude of choices before us, just as Achilles is eternally chasing the tortoise? Zeno compels us to engage with our moral responsibilities actively, to recognize not only our agency, but also the potential limitations of our understanding. By doing so, we can begin to unravel the complexities of our decisions and foster a clearer ethical compass that guides us toward meaningful action in our fast-paced, ever-evolving world. As we navigate our experiences, whether grappling with personal relationships, career paths, or ethical dilemmas, consider how the echoes of Zeno's paradoxes might inform our approach to the choices we make. While we may not always have a clear path forward, understanding the layers of complexity can enhance our ability to engage meaningfully with the world around us. Let the lessons of Zeno serve as a reminder that every step forward matters, even if it seems infinitesimal in the grand scheme of things. As we transition into further discussions about Zeno's ethical implications and how they resonate through history, let us immerse ourselves deeply into the philosophical waters that his paradoxes have opened for us. Understanding Zeno is not merely about contemplating paradox. It's about engaging a richer dialogue concerning our moral lives, our decisions, and the infinite possibilities that make up our reality. Every choice, much like each dot Zeno presents, carves out our ethical space in a narrative larger than ourselves, urging us to act despite the challenges we might face in the chase. This exploration of Zeno of Elea invites a challenging invitation. As we confront our lives, our beliefs, and our ethical frameworks, what world are we trying to engage with, and what steps will we take to reach it? The philosophical journey is as vital as the destination, continuously prompting us to reflect, engage, and ultimately act. Zeno's influence extends beyond the technicalities of his paradoxes. His ideas permeate philosophical discussions on the very essence of existence and our interaction with reality. His paradoxes raise fundamental questions about the nature of truth and validity, and these inquiries directly resonate in the realm of ethics, particularly in understanding how our moral judgments are established. Consider Zeno's paradox of the arrow, which asserts that an arrow in flight is motionless at every individual moment of its flight. This paradox challenges the notion of movement by dissecting it into isolated temporal snapshots. If the arrow is constantly in one position at any given instance in time, the cumulative experience of movement appears to contradict its own reality. This paradox can be extended metaphorically into moral philosophy when we debate the moments of decision-making and the concept of moral acts. If we break down our choices into smaller, discrete moments, the question arises: at what point does an intention become a decision? Just like the arrow, does our moral choice also become an illusion, within a moment-by-moment dissection of intentions and actions? This scenario invites us to reflect deeply on personal responsibility. In the context of modern ethical dilemmas, especially in a world saturated with social media and instantaneous communication, this dissection into moments becomes particularly pertinent. Consider how online discourse often portrays moral judgments starkly and rapidly. A single tweet can spiral into an ethical debate about a person's character or intentions. Here, the accusation echoes Zeno's arrow. In these quick snapshots of time, where does true moral action reside? If we view moral judgments as fragmented moments, does this diminish the weight of accountability, obscuring the overarching narratives that inform our actions and intentions? Moreover, Zeno's paradoxical thought extends into the prevalent concept of identity in moral philosophy. The question of whether a person remains the same over time despite changing intentions, beliefs, or contexts aligns closely with Zeno's inquiries into permanence and change. The famous question, "What does it mean to be oneself?" can be seen through the lens of Zeno's arguments. If our identity is to be analyzed at every moment, similar to the arrow, then are we simply a collection of discrete decisions rather than a coherent, evolving self? This interrogation can lead to moral dilemmas in personal ethics, particularly when one grapples with the idea of moral accountability over the years. In the framework of the self, Zeno's ideas challenge us to consider how continuity versus discontinuity impacts our ethical responsibilities. How do we hold someone accountable for actions that occurred years ago, if their beliefs or context have shifted? With changing perspectives, can past actions captured at single moments still represent the same moral weight they once had? This presents an enduring ethical paradox that resonates with contemporary issues in rehabilitation and forgiveness. How do we reconcile past actions with present selves in the context of justice, especially when considering issues like systemic racism, personalized sentencing, and rehabilitative justice? It becomes essential to think critically about whether moral accountability can follow a person as they evolve. As we delve into Zeno's broader implications for ethics, it is crucial to recognize the critiques arising from his paradoxes. The paradox of the arrow, for instance, was met with responses that emphasized the relevance of time and perpetual motion in understanding our moral lives. Aristotle, as previously mentioned, firmly rejected Zeno's conclusions about motion by elucidating the importance of both time and distance as interconnected elements. He posited that for real events to occur, both change and continuity must be understood as actualities, allowing for a more practical view of ethical behavior that embraces acting within the flow of time. By grounding movement in observable phenomena rather than abstract moments, Aristotle's insights help us navigate ethical frameworks that are not paralyzed by infinite regress. In doing so, He set the stage for later thinkers, including Immanuel Kant, who dissected moral actions in terms of categorical imperatives and universal laws. Kant's insistence on adherence to moral law echoes Zeno's challenges, yet it propels moral philosophy forward by providing a dynamic structure that can evolve through time without losing ethical integrity, while adopting a more empirical understanding of motion and decision-making. These later philosophers also underscore a critical limitation in Zeno's reasoning: the idea that the observer can isolate moments of ethical choice without integrating them into a broader narrative. This connection between temporal sequences and moral experiences allows for a more nuanced understanding of ethical actions as fluid rather than strictly defined fractals. Beyond individual agency, Zeno's work also raises essential questions about collective moral responsibility within the framework of society. Consider how social movements are often marked by an accumulation of small actions that coalesce into significant change, countering the paralysis suggested by Zeno's paradoxes. In political discourse, activists often lay the groundwork for systemic change not through grand gestures, but by mobilizing countless small actions that each might appear insignificant on their own. This echoes a core challenge posed by Zeno: how do we find agency when confronted with the multitude of steps needed to achieve movement in any personal or social context? This approach not only permeates political rhetoric, but also resonates with the medical ethics debates surrounding issues like public health crises or vaccine distribution. For instance, during a pandemic, active participation in public health measures, mask wearing, social distancing, vaccine acceptance, could be seen as a series of ethical choices, each reinforcing the others. In a Zeno-like scenario, one might look at how each small decision, when coupled with countless others, culminates in collective well-being or detriment. The challenge becomes not just to pursue individual responsibility, but to appreciate the weight of contributions to a multifaceted collective morality. In facing the modern challenges posed by technological advancements, Zeno's paradoxes merely scratch the surface of discussions regarding agency and morality in the age of artificial intelligence. Zeno's encompassing tension between infinity and resolution reminds us that in a world dominated by algorithms and machine learning, the precision with which we create systemic ethics requires harmony between abstract reasoning and practical implications. As we construct automated systems designed to make ethical decisions, the responsibilities of developers, legislators, and users intertwine and convolute, echoing Zeno's call to question how actions manifest ethical agency in continuous frameworks. If our systems are composed of lifelong queries devoid of singular definitive judgments, then how do we legislate morality in algorithmic frameworks? How do we navigate the murky waters of liability and intent when the inputs and outputs can never be precisely isolated in a nonlinear fashion? Thus, Zeno's core insights about infinity reveal themselves in the ethical uncertainties and complexities of modernity. In exploring these various implications, it becomes clear that the legacy of Zeno of Elea serves as a catalyst for continuous engagement with ethics, prompting us to reevaluate our responsibilities both as individuals and as a society. Almost every activity we engage in can be viewed through Zeno's lens, from our involvement in social issues to our personal interactions. Are we racing the tortoise in our efforts for change? Are we confined to one moment when assessing moral responsibility? These pressing questions reconnect us to the personal dimensions of agency, time, and intention, uncovering layers of meaning that may have otherwise gone unexamined. In transcending the labyrinth of paradoxes, Zeno invites us to reflect deeply on the interconnectedness of our decisions across time and space. Much like the ethical choices we confront daily, whether they deal with professional obligations or personal relationships, the way we navigate these decisions can be seen as an ongoing race that requires both reflection and courage. The wisdom of Zeno asks us to confront not only our perceptions, but also how we choose to act within them. As we move forward in our own lives, whether engaged in social discourse, grappling with technology's ethical implications, or simply making choices for ourselves, think of Zeno's paradoxes and how they resonate through your daily experiences. What does it mean to you to find agency and responsibility among the myriad actions that make up your reality? To what extent can you embrace the infinite nature of possibility while still committing to meaningful action? Zeno teaches us that every step, however small, is part of a larger narrative, an unfolding dialogue on morality that we each play a role in shaping. Ultimately, engaging with Zeno's philosophical challenges allows us to weave a richer tapestry of moral thought and practice. Let the threads of his paradoxes serve as an invitation to live our lives deliberately, recognizing that every action contributes to the broader dialogues of ethics and existence, urging us to act with intention and awareness as we navigate the complexities of life. As you reflect on your choices, consider how the profound questioning of Zeno encourages you to engage deeply with your ethical landscape, embracing the infinite nature of possibility that lies ahead. Continuing from the philosophical inquiries spawned by Zeno of Elea, we can explore his paradoxes not only as abstract dilemmas, but also as mirrors reflecting deeper truths about human experience. Zeno's work challenges us to consider fundamental notions of reality, time, and action. But what happens when we take these principles and apply them to personal and societal dynamics? To further understand Zeno's legacy, we must engage with how his notions of paradox intertwine with contemporary moral challenges in a multifaceted world. One fascinating area to delve into is the ethical implications of Zeno's paradoxes within the context of personal relationships and commitments. The concept of the infinite regress found in Zeno's paradoxes rings particularly true when we consider the nature of trust and betrayal in human connections. For instance, imagine a long-term friendship that has faced strains due to misunderstandings or altercations. Each moment of conflict or disagreement can be broken down into countless actions or words exchanged. In this light, one might find themselves reflecting on the question, at which moment does an unresolved issue morph from a simple disagreement into a fundamental breach of trust? This kind of dissection can connect with Zeno's arrow. If we break down moments in a relationship to their individual components, we could argue that while harm may occur in singular interactions, the overall relationship cannot be diminished to just those points. Does this mean that the history of a relationship, fluctuating between bonds built over time, becomes less significant when focusing solely on individual moments? This philosophical reflection invites us to consider the fluidity of agency in interpersonal relationships. As we analyze individual actions within the scope of the entire relationship, it encourages a more nuanced view of accountability and forgiveness. Even more intriguingly, consider the implications within romantic relationships. When partners face conflicts, how often do they engage in a spiraling dialogue that recalls a series of previous grievances? By isolating each argument, reflecting on every unkind word or hurtful action, partners may find themselves paralyzed by their past, a predicament resembling Zeno's paradox, wherein each point in time prevents a resolution from taking place. Here, Zeno's thinking resonates in marriages and partnerships where moments of tension become stumbling blocks. We can ask ourselves, how can partners reconcile these individual grievances without getting lost in an infinite regress of hurt? In a therapeutic context, one approach can be to reframe these conversations, shifting from a focus on isolated actions to the broader context of shared experiences. This means viewing the relationship as a cumulative tapestry of positive and negative moments, rather than allowing a singular incident to define the connection. Acknowledging the complexity and dynamic nature of relationships can resemble an acceptance of Zeno's paradoxes, where we recognize the value of continuity amidst individual failings. Turning our focus beyond personal relationships, Zeno's paradoxes also yield considerable insights into organizational ethics and corporate responsibility. Particularly relevant today are the complexities surrounding corporate decisions. Consider, for example, a company weighing the ecological costs of production versus profit margins. Often, these companies may get caught in an endless loop of justifying small, incremental steps toward making ethical changes rather than making more substantial commitments that align actions with values. This scenario reflects Zeno's paradox of the tortoise, wherein businesses may perpetually promise improvements that seem perpetually receding. This can lead us to reflect on the ethical responsibilities of corporations regarding environmental sustainability. Take the ongoing issue of climate change, where firms often respond to pressure with token gestures rather than real commitments. By making minimal changes, such as pledging to reduce emissions by a small percentage over a long time frame, the company continuously defers significant investment in sustainable practices. The question arises, do these incremental steps constitute meaningful engagement with corporate responsibility, or do they perpetuate inaction? Zeno's work encourages us to scrutinize this interplay between potentiality and action. If corporations exist in a constant state of preparation for ethical engagement but never progress, they risk resembling Achilles, ceaselessly chasing practical and proactive policies that remain just out of reach. This raises the ethical dilemma regarding the authenticity of corporate responsibility. At what point do pledges transition from being mere artifacts of public relations to genuinely impactful changes? This dilemma further underscores a modern corporate parallel to Zeno's teachings. While each step might seem incremental and manageable, the failure to act decisively can lead to debilitating stagnation. Similarly, these themes reverberate within modern technological debates as society grapples with automation and ethical algorithm development. Zeno's arrow presents a profound reflection on agency within systems increasingly characterized by complexity and, at times, opaqueness. For example, as artificial intelligence systems are deployed across various domains, from recruitment to policing, questions arise about moral accountability and decision-making processes. If these systems act in ways that are not entirely predictable or transparent, to what degree can programmers or corporations be held responsible for those actions? Striking a balance between agency and accountability often draws parallels with Zeno's paradoxes that highlight the potential dissolution of responsibility in an environment defined by algorithmic decision-making. When AI reacts based on vast amounts of data, is the accountability diffused among those who designed, trained, and implemented the technology? The moral implications of this diffusion resonate with Zeno's challenges. Like Achilles pursuing the tortoise, moral agents may find themselves constantly negotiating an ethical landscape where the lines of responsibility blur. Moving into the political realm, Zeno's influence also surfaces in the discourse around democracy and social activism. Political movements frequently navigate the tension between voices advocating for sweeping reforms and those suggesting gradual change. This division prompts us to consider the implications of Zeno's paradoxes. Is true change initiated through sweeping actions or by accumulating infinite small steps, each aiming at justice or liberation? Within these movements, the challenge remains to avoid paralysis, the avoidance of action that occurs when advocates become bogged down by differences in strategy. Oftentimes, this conflict manifests on platforms advocating for social justice, where proponents frequently debate whether advocating for policy changes may lead to systemic transformation, or whether existing structures are too entrenched to effect meaningful change. How do movements reconcile the urgency of their aims with the complexities discovered through Zeno's lens? If every proposed action risks being interpreted through a lens of infinite regress, how can they maintain momentum while addressing systemic barriers? Zeno's inquiry invites us to ponder such moments in activism, challenging us to scrutinize how incremental actions must accompany broader calls for justice if we wish to engender real societal changes. Additionally, developing a collective understanding of responsibility within these frameworks creates a ripple effect that emphasizes the communal nature of ethical activism. These reflections guide us toward the enduring connection between Zeno's thought and moral philosophy's responsibility toward contemporary ethical dilemmas. His paradoxes invite us not only to confront temporal challenges, but also to understand the potential consequences that can arise through moral agency. By analyzing ethical issues within a Zeno-like framework, we recognize that every step holds weight, from global decisions on climate change to the personal decisions that inform our everyday lives. Zeno's contribution encourages an awareness of our moral implications, individually and collectively. As we dissect the complex layers of our moral commitments, we can better appreciate that agency often lies within the nuances and intricacies of hope. Each act, whether it is a commitment to personal integrity or a larger societal cause, resonates with the consistent threads of responsibility, intertwining and weaving through the vast amounts of individual choices interlaced into the fabric of existence. As you continue to reflect on Zeno's paradoxes and their implications today, bring awareness to the moral dimensions inherent in the decisions you'll face. Whether navigating the responsibilities of your personal relationships, considering corporate accountability, or engaging with the complexities of modern governance, recognize that every choice contributes to a more expansive dialogue about morality and meaning. How might you act on your desires for change, especially when confronted with the daunting demands of many interconnected steps? This philosophical exploration serves as a reminder that the essence of morality lies not in philosophical abstractions alone, but in our capability to manifest our beliefs through action. By this token, perhaps Zeno's legacy invites each of us to consider how we strive to bridge the gap between intention and action. How might we approach the infinite narrative of our ethical lives with courage and determination, acting in ways that resonate with the values we hold dear? Ultimately, Zeno's insights compel us to engage actively with life's moral questions, illuminating pathways toward greater awareness of our choices and implications. Whether through historical analysis, personal reflection, or collective action, may we strive to embrace the evolving tapestry of morality influenced by Zeno's paradoxes, recognizing that the journey itself is as important as the destination we are striving to reach. This ongoing exploration of truth, agency, and moral connection can empower meaningful discourse amidst the complexities of our contemporary world, fostering a richer ethical landscape in which we all participate. Word count 4,182.
Midnight rails under silver moon, dusty boots on a winding road. A shadow's the only friend I've known since she packed up and let me go. In empty whiskey bottle on the seat. Her laugh still echoes in my bones. The saddle's heavy with memories. I ride alone where the wind still blows. Nowhere else to be. 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 Sunrise paints the horizon gold, but it don't warm a lonesome soul. Every town I pass feels half her size. Every trail's haunted by goodbye. I whisper prayers to open skies, hoping someday my heart'll find a brand new path beyond the pain, where broken hearts can heal in time. Nowhere else to be. 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 No.